Chapter 4 Cameron Boxer. As the landing craft approached the shores of Okinawa, we were taking withering fire from the island's defenders. Shells burst all around us, sending up geysers of water. Tracer bullets cut through the waves. The thump of anti-aircraft guns assaulted my eardrums, sending black puffs into the sky above. And another sound. I lifted the headset from my ears and strained to hear. Bang! Rattle! Cameron Boxer! Rattle! Bang! Who's making all that noise? I asked in annoyance. It's the Japanese army, called Chuck over the headset. Not that noise. Somebody's outside my house. Don't look at us, Pavel reasoned. How could we be in the game if we're outside your house? And then we all heard Darth Vader's diabolical cackle. Chuck panicked. Evil McKill people! I used the controller to take evasive action. He won't get us this time. There was a crimson flash and a deafening boom, and pieces of our boat and our avatar bodies began raining down into the sea. I distinctly saw my leg go by. For the first time, I found myself regretting that the graphics in this war game were so realistic. Who was this Canadian, this evil McKill people? And why was he so good that he could always wreck me? Bang! Rattle! Cameron Boxer! Rattle! Bang! I glanced up at the window. All I could see was a fist pounding behind the sofa cushion I'd jammed there. We needed a bigger couch. Privacy was important to my lifestyle. Who is that? Why don't you go up and see? Chuck suggested. No way, I retorted. We're taking down McKill people once and for all. You wish, chortled the deep voice over the headset. The last time you tried that strategy, Pavel reminded me, the fire department axed in your door. The sensible advice came from Chuck. It will be a few minutes before we can get a new platoon together anyway. Go see who it is. Bang! Rattle! Cameron Boxer! Just a minute! I shouted. Despite the clatter, I took my time going upstairs. After all, it wasn't like the entire Sycamore Fire Department was on my lawn. At least not this time. I slipped out via the back slider and walked around the house to the front. The girl who stood pounding on the plywood was slight, almost compact, with medium brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Daphne Leibowitz. We'd been in school together since kindergarten, but I couldn't remember ever having a single conversation with her. Why was she suddenly standing on my porch, banging on the plywood and barking my name? Spying me? She asked. What happened to your door? It's a long story, I replied, hoping that she wouldn't demand to hear it. Downstairs, Okinawa beckoned, and another shot at evil McKill people, if he was still online. How do you get in and out? She persisted. Around the back. Well, what are we waiting for? She said impatiently. We've got a lot of work to do. I didn't like the sound of that. The work and the we, especially when they were used together. I doubted I'd said more than a few sentences to this girl in my entire life. There was no work, and there was definitely no we. But Daphne didn't see it that way. She marched right past me, around the house, and in through the slider to the kitchen. Well, I couldn't very well leave her alone in there and go someplace else, and if I went back down to the basement, she'd just follow me. So, about this work, I said finally. The word burned my tongue. Good thinking. We should get to it. She opened her backpack, pulled out an iPad, and swiped the screen to bring up a web page. I instantly recognized the logo of Sycamore Middle School. I leaned closer to investigate further. Positive Action Group, because helping others is an education in itself. I almost choked. That wasn't just any page from the school site. That was my page, and one of the illest ideas I'd ever had, too. My mother was so puffed up with pride over the Positive Action Group that her feet hadn't touched the ground in the 3 days since I'd first shown it to her. Dad was pretty psyched, too. At least, he hadn't mentioned the cost of the new door lately. And he'd taken to punching me playfully in the arm and calling me Mr. President. Even my kid sister Melody complained a little less about me hogging the game system. Nobody messed with a student leader, especially not with a Class A do-gooder like me. Or so I assumed. Daphne fixed me with earnest eyes. Honest, Cam, this is the best thing ever. I used to think so, I agreed miserably. Seriously, it restores my faith in the kids in this town. You must have changed a lot since that field trip where everything got canceled, so we could search for you. And it turned out you were holed up in the bathroom playing video games on one of those handheld thingies. I remembered that trip, the outdoor center. To be fair, it wasn't my fault. Nobody was smart enough to look in the bathroom, but I was glad they didn't. I reached level 67 that day. So, as soon as my membership goes through, she went on, we can start planning our first big project. Membership? I was mystified. Membership in what? The PAG, of course. I've got a ton of great ideas. There are so many people and animals who need help around here. Maybe I was being extra clueless, but in my defense, it had never occurred to me that anyone would want to join the PAG. I wasn't even really a member, and I was the president. I would have bet $1 million that nobody ever looked at the school site, and I would have lost because one person did. She was going on and on about some guy named Elvis. She talked really fast, or maybe it just seemed that way because I stopped listening after the first few sentences. I didn't even want Daphne in the PAG. If Elvis wanted to join too, that would definitely put the membership way over the limit of 0, according to the club rules, which I was making up as fast as I could. I had a flash of inspiration and interrupted Daphne to say, the Positive Action Group is really new, and we're kind of worried about getting too big too fast. So right now, there's a membership freeze. Sorry, but we'll let you know the minute that gets lifted. Her tiny features flamed red, and her ponytail seemed to defy gravity. Sycamore school clubs have to be open to anybody. There can't be a membership freeze because that would go against every policy the district has. If you try to keep me out, I'll tell Mr. Fanshawe, Mrs. Amos, Dr. LaPierre, Mrs. Katsakis, Mr. Delzato. She went on to list every adult with any authority over our lives, starting with the teachers, the principal, the superintendent, and Mayor Dolinka himself. I heard a couple of town councilor members in there too, and maybe the chief of police. And all the while I was thinking, she'll do it too. If I don't let her in, she'll rat me out to half of Sycamore, and before you know it, the PAG will be exposed as a fraud. And when Mom and Dad find out, I can kiss rule the world goodbye. What was I going to do? Okay, I said finally. Join. She brightened. You mean I'm in? I nodded. But I'm just making an exception for you. That Elvis guy is going to have to wait until the membership freeze is over. She stared at me. Elvis is a beaver. That made even less sense than the rest of it. Why would a beaver want to join the PAG? I asked. He's not a member. He's our first project. His colony got displaced when they built the new mall, but he was too old to keep up. We have to build him a new home. Don't beavers build their own homes? Yeah, when they're in a colony. Poor Elvis is alone, and he's too old and feeble to build a whole lodge by himself. All he can do is chew on fences and decks and cable wires, getting yelled at by people who don't understand. Cable wires? I repeated in horror. There had been a number of random cable outages around Sycamore lately, knocking out TV and internet service, including my gaming connection. The cable company called the problem unexplained. But those big beaver teeth were all the explanation I needed. Anybody who interfered with gaming networks didn't deserve a new home. He deserved a speedy exile. I've found the perfect spot for it, she raved on. It's in the wooded part of Ravine Park, just north of the highway. There's a stream and plenty of sunlight coming through the treetops. Plus, there are squirrels and chipmunks and all kinds of fellow rodents for him to make friends with, so he won't feel so abandoned by his family. It went without saying that the Positive Action Group would never perform any good deeds, because I invented it purely to get my folks off my back. But even if the PAG was 100% legit, the last thing it would waste its valuable time on was a beaver lodge. I had no idea what it would do, but beaver lodges would be last on the list. But I couldn't very well tell her that, could I? So I said, okay, we'll bring it up at the next meeting. When? Daphne had a real knack for asking unanswerable questions. How could there be a next meeting when there had never been any meeting at all? I'll text you, I promised. She made me write down her number. That paper was in the garbage before the sliding door had closed behind her.